Tabletop role-playing games were initially known as fantasy role-playing games. Over time, the term of choice became role-playing games, RPGs. Then somewhere in the 1990s, the term shifted again to tabletop role-playing games and the unwieldy and unsatisfying TTRPG acronym. Why? Because RPGs became the province of digital role-playing games. It's no secret that the computer games industry is a mammoth. It's a $64 billion market, which is greater than the annual defense spending of Germany and bigger than Nike's annual global revenue. Meanwhile, even in a golden age of tabletop role-playing, the TTRPG market is orders of magnitude smaller. The original face-to-face analog mode of role-playing has been thoroughly supplanted by its digital offspring. And though we can still call it tabletop role-playing, the dominant format in the hobby is now online play, facilitated and streamed to observers by digital tools. It's obvious that improvements in technology, particularly those that allow people to connect, play, and watch regardless of geographic separation, are responsible for this transition away from face-to-face play. But there's more to this story, I think. Even in the early days of computer RPGs, they weren't subject to the kind of fear and dismissal that often greeted tabletop RPGs in their early years. Yes, fantasy role-playing games were wildly popular by the time my junior high friends and I latched onto them at the dawn of the 1980s, but they were also famously fodder for the Satanic Panic and attacked for being instruments of the devil. And even in places where D&D wasn't associated with demonic rites, advertising oneself as a D&D nerd was scrupulously avoided. I had jock friends, surfer friends, and popular for various reasons friends, and we all kept our gaming habit somewhat cloaked. That was the story for many role players of that era. But I noticed something as computer role-playing games exploded onto the scene. Nobody looked at them with suspicion. Yes, there were parents who were concerned about early computer RPGs, but the objections were similar to those leveled at the movie Fast Times at Ridgemont High or the song Cop Killer. The games were ostensibly speaking to teenagers about things, underage sex in the former, violence in the latter, that offended parents. The objections were about substance, not form. Some of this more muted reaction can probably be attributed to everyone being exhausted by the Satanic Panic. Still, at least in the United States, I suspect a more fundamental force was at work. Computer RPGs are technology. They are progress. We Americans are comfortable with that. Tabletop RPGs, however, are books. Specifically, they are books that invoke imagination, books that define fictional worlds that don't operate the way our world does. They are arcane. Many Americans are definitely not comfortable with that. That which is arcane is secret, known only to a few, and mysterious to those who don't know it. You have to devote time and attention to a book in order to know what it's about, to absorb and understand it. Explaining a book often isn't easy, and the only way to truly understand a book is to read it yourself. Contrast that with a video game. What is a video game? Well, look, see how I'm moving my fingers on the keyboard and my paladin is fighting orcs on the screen? That's a video game. The nuances of how to most effectively play the game take time to master, but there's nothing secret, nothing hidden beneath the surface or requiring interpretation. Video games are also played on devices that represent the cutting edge of consumer technology. These devices are produced by publicly traded companies and purchased by millions of people across the globe. They bear the imprimatur of progress, convenience, immediacy, and the future. There's something that happens when a fantastical story birthed as a book becomes a video game, TV show, or movie. It becomes accessible, which is to say, easily absorbed. Tolkien's Middle-earth books sold like hotcakes for decades. George R.R. Martin's Tales of the Iron Throne were wildly popular, and the Expanse series were all bestsellers. But even after Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings movies crushed box office records, and Game of Thrones became the hottest thing in streaming, admitting that you enjoy the books behind those blockbusters identifies you as perhaps a bit too interested in the fantastical. There's something about that degree of immersion that many people find unsettling. Tabletop role-playing books are even more unsettling. They're not just journeys into imagined realities, they invite participants in those worlds. In a very real sense, they are gateways. In Horror of Horrors, the power of these books is such that they can bring people into imagined worlds without the benevolent, homogenizing hand of digital technology. Is it any wonder that some number of credulous and fearful parents saw Dungeons & Dragons as a malevolent force? If it wasn't enabled by technology and it offered a pathway into inhabiting imagined realities, how could that not be an encroachment into magic and belief? How could that not be an affront to spirituality, one of the few areas that can't be safely given over to technology's governance? And if you already believe in the devil, it's not much of a leap to accept that those D&D tomes could be the devil's way of providing foul instructions to young minds. Spells, after all, reside in books. Thankfully, though fear and loathing are still manifestly endemic to the human condition, the fiery eye of misplaced moral panic is no longer pointed at tabletop RPGs. I'll submit, though, that much of this is because the public face of our hobby is now digital, radiating the warm, comforting glow of technological progress. Let us not speak of the books that still lurk in the shadows, arcane and unknowable to those who dare not uncover their secrets. Thank you for watching, and as always, I appreciate any comments you have here on YouTube or in the Discord.